Hello everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today we're watching every single faction in Warhammer 40k explained. I am a big fan of Warhammer 40k. I know a little bit. I have watched some clips, some videos, fan-made videos, and etc. And I know about the Emperor and Space Marines. Other than that, I don't know much about uh, other factions in Warhammer, and I know that it is very big. The lore is so interesting, and there is so much to learn, so much to watch. So I'm really excited for this video, and I think I'm going to learn a lot. Maybe you may learn a lot if you don't know, like me. So I'm really excited. Let's get into it.
Tapestry made up of thousands of threads, all forming the sprawling designs that form the robust lore base for this franchise.
Wait,
The largest,
let me.
the universe of
Something
Warhammer
else.
40k is a richly woven tapestry made up of thousands of threads, all forming the sprawling designs that form the robust lore base for this franchise. The largest parts of those patterns are the many factions that inhabit this setting, each representing a race or grouping of peoples with years of established lore that has been written, lost, changed, reworked, and reimagined. As
Yeah,
such,
it's
it
so
can be
big.
easy to get lost in this literal galaxy of cultures,
I know
even
that
for those who have been
that's a
immersed
whole.
in this universe for years. So, let us offer to guide you on a brief tour of the people who make the 40k universe alive. These are the factions of 40k. It would be impossible to start a list like this with anyone other than the Imperium of Man. Humanity in the 42nd millennium is a diverse, sprawling mass of people, trillions and trillions of citizens, turning the massive grinding wheels of an uncaring, unkind society broken into billions of fiefs, baronies, concords, and autocracies, and at the very top, a small group of deeply corrupt individuals propping up the barely living corpse of a god who dared to dream of a galaxy ruled by Terra. Like any fascist dictatorship, the Imperium controls its citizens through the threat of force and propaganda, and everything revolves around the ever-present struggle for survival. Entire planets and systems are given over to specific production uses, and every single person is meant to live and die for the God Emperor. They are pressed into service running factories, churning out weapons and ammunition. They are whipped into growing food for entire sectors of blasted battlefields that can no longer sustain life. And of course, they are conscripted in their billions to feed into the ever-burning furnace of war. This is life as a human in the 42nd millennium. It wasn't always like this, of course. Humanity went through its golden age where we developed technology so fantastical it bordered on magic and spread to every corner of the galaxy. And then, in our hubris, we fell. Our civilization fractured into isolated pockets that would war amongst each other for millennia. It was in this age of strife that the Emperor appeared, a gleaming golden god possessing incredible psychic powers and the knowledge of technology long lost to us. He rose up and conquered Terra using genetically engineered soldiers before setting his sights on the stars. The next part is important, but probably best left for another video, so here's the broad strokes. Knowing the dangerous power of chaos, the Emperor decided to fight back with his genetically engineered children, the Primarchs. These were promptly stolen by the Chaos Gods and scattered across the universe, but not before the Emperor could use their genetic material to design a new force of super soldiers, the Space Marines. He took these Marines on a whirlwind tour of the galaxy.
I already have so many questions. First of all, where did the emperor come from, and how did he become so powerful? I think I need to watch a whole new video on this question. Also, it seems like living as a normal human being in this world sucks. Is it true or am I wrong?
linking up with those pockets of humanity left behind during the Age of Strife, and also finding his lost sons along the way. Unfortunately, as many of us know, family can be complicated, and inside a few short centuries of warfare, half of them turned on the Emperor and his new Imperium. These rebellions never tend to work out though, and the sons who sided with War Master Horus, the Emperor's favorite son who had fallen to the whispered promises of chaos, were either killed or chased into hiding with their legions of Space Marines. But in the fighting, the Emperor was mortally wounded and was bound in a life-saving device known as the Golden Throne, kept alive but only just, his psychic might powering a beacon that allows humanity to travel across the galaxy using the warp as a shortcut to this day. It was during the next 10,000 years that the Imperium became what it is now, with many different forces and systems being created to prop up failing or stagnating ones. We have the Space Marines, of course. These super soldiers created by the Emperor survive to this day, fighting as the sharpest point of humanity's spear against the darkness. Then there's the Imperial Guard or Astra Militarum, the grand armies of the Imperium that are made of regular humans acting as a bulwark against the many dangers that constantly threaten to destroy us. The Mechanicum of Mars, secretive druids who control all technology in the Imperium and constantly search for what was lost during the Age of Strife. They are jealous and superstitious, often only able to build or repair objects through memorized rituals. And the Inquisition, the Watchers who watch the Watchmen. The Inquisition are spies and investigators, duty-bound to hunt down the most insidious threats to humanity, even from inside the very organizations that hold us up. The alien, the mutant, and the heretic are the targets of this shadowy organization. There are, of course, many more than we have time to go over here, but it's important to be clear that the Imperium of the 42nd millennium is a fact.
I think I know these guys. They are custodians, right? Custodians, regular human soldiers, a space marine, and I can't remember her name. I think these are called dreadnoughts. I watched short videos about these.
Action constantly at war with itself, spread so thin across the stars that there could be no hope of running a functioning society, even with fear. Sitting parallel to reality lies the nightmare realm of the warp, a writhing, bubbling soup made primarily of the thoughts and emotions of sentient creatures from the beginning of time. In those uncounted eons, terrifying predators have slowly gained form and sentience, some more powerful than others, but each representing an aspect of reality like a dark mirror. In the ancient days of the universe, the warp was known as the Sea of Souls and was relatively calm. People like the mysterious Old Ones and the ancient Eldari were able to tap into the sea and use its power to work miracles. But in the course of time, and with the things that sentient creatures do, such as love and hate and make war especially, those predators in the warp grew fat and strong, and so did the gods of chaos take form. Horn the blood god, born of hate and rage, Nurgle, bearer of plagues, born of despair and the fear of death, Tzeentch the Changebringer, born of ambition and the desire for change, and finally much later, Slaanesh, the prince of pleasure and excess, born of greed and lust. These creatures immediately began spinning their webs across reality, seducing mortals and searching for ways to break in and, well, cause chaos. In the history of Warhammer 40k, the Chaos Gods are most responsible for completely ruining the plans of the Emperor, Hera's Golden Protector. They turned several of his Primarch sons, and in doing so, gained almost 9 full legions of Space Marines to command. And it's through these forces and the billions of cultists seeded across human worlds that the galaxy primarily knows chaos. It would not be unfair to think that if humanity were to be completely destroyed, then chaos itself would be dealt a death blow from which it might never recover, and the Sea of Souls would be rendered safe once again. Old, wise, cunning, and self-righteous, the Eldari of the Asuryani are the last survivors of a broken race who once controlled the galaxy. The Eldari were one of the first peoples created by the mysterious Old Ones at the dawn of time, and were clearly the favorites. The Old Ones shared much of their wisdom with the ancient Eldari, and when they disappeared at the end of the War in Heaven, their elf-like children inherited their most impressive creation, the Webway. The ability to travel across the galaxy quickly without having to pass through the Chaos Realm of the Warp gave the Eldari a huge advantage over the other races, even if the Warp at that time was not as dangerous as it is in the 42nd millennium. Using the Webway, the Eldari flourished and quickly came to rule the galaxy. It wasn't long afterwards that things started getting worse. The Eldari are a race that experiences things to a greater extreme than most other creatures. They feel things more keenly, more intensely, and most of their kind have some level of psychic power. Unchecked, this led the Eldari civilization to devolve into hedonism on a scale we humans couldn't possibly imagine. The Asuryani are descended from the Eldari, who saw the warning signs of their collapsing empire and decided to flee into deep space aboard continent-sized ships called craft worlds. Here, they rode out the dying gasps of their old society and formed a new one based on rigid paths designed to guide the powerful minds of their people so as to avoid the horrors that had nearly destroyed them all. Led by powerful psychers, ancient war leaders, and constructs powered by their honored dead, the Asuryani fight to right the wrongs of their civilization, which gave birth to a whole new god of chaos, and to perhaps gain the slim chance of a future for their dwindling kind. Remnants of the old Eldari Empire, living uninhibited and reveling in the excess of lived experiences. That part definitely sounds like the functional opposite of their craft world cousins, but it's the content of those experiences that takes this comparison away from Dark Mirror and firmly into something else. When the old Eldari Empire began to fracture, it was at the very height of its depravity. Cannibalism, substance abuse, assault, murder, the Eldari had become a race lost in the swirling tempest of their own emotions, and had embraced cruelty as an art form. This is what led to the fall, the explosive punctuation of all the psychic power put out by the uninhibited Eldari gave birth to the Chaos God Slaanesh, a crescendo of depravity that consumed the heart of their galaxy-spanning empire in the space of a single heartbeat, with a gaping wound in reality called the Eye of Terror to stand as its grave marker. Those highly placed in the old society have fled into the Webway to survive, too late to join the craft worlds, but just quick enough to avoid the full consequences of their misdeeds. Here, in a small pocket of the Webway, under the glow of several stolen stars, they took residence in the city of Kamara, the most important Webway port ever built by the Eldari Empire. They hid from Slaanesh and began making forays into real space, fetching slaves and searching for methods to avoid the grasp of She Who Thirsts. Instead of changing their ways, the Drakari maintained their sadistic lifestyle, eventually figuring out how to use the pain and suffering of other creatures to extend their lives, and they truly delight in it. The cabals that rule Kamara are at constant odds with each other, sniping and jabbing, looking for any way to gain control, be it by blackmail, intrigue, or outright assassination. The old nobility of the Eldari Empire became homunculi, mad scientists who experiment even on their own flesh for a variety of reasons, pleasure being one of them. And all the while, the witch covens fight in the grand arenas with slaves and monsters, gaining longevity through the thrill of extreme experiences and the love of bloodshed. Out of the black nothingness between galaxies drifted the hive fleets of the Tyranids in the late 41st millennium. Taking the other races by surprise, these creatures stripped whole worlds of life before moving on to new ones, like a horde of terrifying alien locusts. But it quickly became apparent that the Tyranids were not mindless beasts, they were guided by a massively oppressive intelligence which formed complex plans and invasion routes and could even blot out the pervasive touch of the warp itself. The bioforms of the Tyranids are many and change constantly in response to new threats, ensuring that any method of beating them is quickly erased. Each group of these monsters are also guided by a powerful synapse creature, which acts as a focus for the hive mind and a useful way to guide the swarm across trillions of battlefields at the same time. The real terror of this menace.
They remind me of the creatures from the movie